The Young and the Restless spoilers Monday update full September 9, 2024. Lily sat alone in her office, a document clutched tightly in her hands. The weight of what she possessed was almost too much to bear. She had the key to Billy's downfall, secrets that, if revealed, could send his world crashing down. For weeks, Lily had been wrestling with the decision of what to do. The knowledge she held was like a ticking time bomb, capable of destroying Billy's career, his relationships, and everything he had worked for. All it would take was a single conversation with Victor. She knew that if she handed over these secrets, Victor would use them to his advantage without hesitation. It was all part of the game for him. Victor had always sought power, and Billy was one of the few people standing in his way. Lily could easily trade Billy's secrets for a strategic gain, and in doing so, she would secure her position. But something held her back. Despite everything, a part of Lily still cared for Billy. Their relationship had been tumultuous, full of highs and lows, passion and pain. She had seen the best and the worst of him, and yet, there was a part of her that still hoped he might change. That maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. Lily wasn't blind to Billy's flaws, his reckless nature, his need for validation, his inability to stay grounded, but she knew the man he could be when he was at his best. But time was running out. Victor was growing impatient, and Lily knew that waiting too long might mean missing her opportunity altogether. The question that gnawed at her was simple: was Billy worth saving? Could he pull himself together, or was he destined to spiral out of control, dragging everyone down with him? Billy, on the other hand, was lost. His life had become a mess of conflicting desires and unresolved issues. He craved stability, but at the same time, he found himself constantly sabotaging any chance at peace. His ego was his greatest enemy. He pushed people away, people who genuinely wanted to help, because he couldn't stand the idea of appearing weak. Even now, when he desperately needed support, he refused to let anyone in. It wasn't just about pride, it was about control. Billy needed to feel like he was in charge of his own life, even as it crumbled around him. He missed his mother, Jill, more than he was willing to admit. Her absence left a void that he couldn't fill, and though he had tried to distract himself with work, relationships, and impulsive decisions, nothing seemed to satisfy the emptiness inside him. Billy wanted Jill back in Genoa, believing that her presence might be the grounding force he needed to turn things around. But Jill had her own life, her own priorities, and Billy wasn't sure when, or if, she would return. In the meantime, Billy's relationships continued to fracture. His dynamic with Chance was growing increasingly strained. Chance had been patient, trying to help Billy navigate his chaotic life, but even his patience had its limits. Billy's stubbornness and refusal to listen had pushed Chance to the edge, and he found himself wondering if it was worth sticking around. Chance remembered Jill's words before she left. She had entrusted him with watching over Billy, hoping he could be the one to keep him grounded in her absence. He had promised her that he wouldn't walk away, but now, with Billy spiraling further out of control, that promise felt like a heavy burden. Chance was torn between his loyalty to Jill and his growing frustration with Billy's self-destructive behavior. If he left now, it would feel like betrayal, but staying felt like enabling a man who refused to help himself. He knew he had to wait for Jill's return before making any decisions, but the longer he stayed, the more helpless he felt. As Billy's life unraveled, another storm was brewing, this time between Lucy and Sharon. The two women had clashed over Faith, each believing they knew what was best for her. Sharon, as Faith's mother, had always felt a deep connection to her daughter, and her protective instincts were strong. But Lucy, despite her youth and inexperience, had developed a close bond with Faith, and she wasn't about to let anyone tell her how to care for her best friend. Their disagreement had started small, but it quickly escalated into a full-blown argument. Sharon accused Lucy of being irresponsible, of not understanding the complexities of what Faith was going through. Lucy, headstrong and defiant, refused to back down. She was used to getting her way, having been raised in a household where her parents often indulged her whims. But Sharon wasn't like her parents. She wouldn't let Lucy's rebellious attitude slide, especially when it came to Faith. "Faith is my daughter, Lucy," Sharon said firmly during one of their heated exchanges. "I know what's best for her, and you need to respect that." Lucy crossed her arms, her face set in defiance. "I'm her best friend, Sharon. I spend more time with her than anyone else. You might be her mom, but that doesn't mean you know everything." Sharon's frustration mounted. You're too young to understand the consequences of your actions. Faith needs guidance, not someone who encourages her to make reckless decisions. Reckless? You don't even know what you're talking about. Lucy shot back. You're just mad because Faith listens to me more than she listens to you. The argument continued to spiral, with neither woman willing to give an inch. It became clear that this wasn't just about Faith, it was a power struggle between two women who both believed they were right. Lucy's immaturity and stubbornness clashed with Sharon's maternal instincts, and the result was a battle that threatened to tear Faith apart. Meanwhile, Lucy's defiance was only growing. Her parents had always treated her like a princess, and their indulgence had shaped her into someone who didn't take kindly to authority. She was used to getting her way, and Sharon's resistance only fueled her rebellious nature. But behind her bravado, there was a vulnerability, a young girl who was still trying to figure out where she fit in the world. Her bond with Faith was one of the few things that felt stable, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. Back in Billy's world, the tension with Chance continued to build. Chance was struggling with his conscience. He didn't want to break his promise to Jill, but the strain of dealing with Billy's erratic behavior was becoming too much. Every day, he found himself questioning whether staying was the right choice, and the idea of walking away was becoming more tempting with each passing moment. But Chance knew one thing for sure, he couldn't make any decisions until Jill returned to Genoa. Until then, he was stuck in a situation that seemed to have no easy solution. The people of Genoa were all caught in a web of complicated relationships, each dealing with their own battles and secrets. Billy's ego, Lucy's defiance, Sharon's protectiveness, and Chance's loyalty were all colliding in a way that would change the landscape of their lives forever. As the days went by, the question lingered, would any of them find peace, or were they all destined to repeat the same mistakes, trapped in a cycle of pride, stubbornness, and unresolved tension? The question remained, was this reunion a true moment of healing, or was it simply the calm before the storm? Could Kyle navigate the treacherous waters of corporate espionage without getting caught? Would Jack be able to trust his son in the midst of all the deception? One thing was certain, this was far from over. The battle for control of Jabot and the power dynamics between the Abbotts and the Newmans were just beginning. And in the center of it all stood Kyle, torn between loyalty to his father and the dangerous game he was now playing. So, what do you think? Is this reunion genuine, or is it destined to fall apart under the weight of secrets and lies? Personally, I sense that while the bond between Jack and Kyle is real, the forces working against them are too great to ignore. Kyle's double life may end up causing more harm than good, and as much as I hope for a peaceful resolution, it feels like the calm before a much larger storm. What about you? Do you believe in the possibility of a happy ending, or do you think they're heading for